Hey everybody, Rich here, South Florida Beekeeping with Rich. So a couple of weeks ago, I knew I was going to have to go into the hives and do a honey harvest. Didn't really want to, but I knew it was going to be necessary because I was going to have to reduce the hives down for winter because otherwise wax moths and small hive beetles would start ravaging the comb as they abandon it as their numbers go down towards middle of December. And as it happened, I'd gotten this little catalog.
From?
Well, I got it from Amazon because this isn't a current catalog. Don't I wish it was? This is the, what is it, 1883 AI Root catalog, their 40th anniversary catalog, which shows you how long they've been around, since 1820, or what is it, 83, so 1843. And I love going through old catalogs. I can be lost for hours doing it. And one thing that I had seen in this catalog.
There.
You got it?
I do. Tell us what it is.
Well, if you can read that too, it says basket to be hung on extractor for broken pieces of comb and for section boxes. The main thing is it's a basket.
No, the main thing is
clips on it.
That in what was the year on that catalog?
83.
1883, nobody had foundation.
Yeah, some people were using foundation to a slight extent, but it wasn't anything like ours now. But most beekeeping back then was foundationless, just like mine is. Now, one of the reasons that I'm not really thrilled about doing honey harvest is the best method I've ever come up with for extracting my foundationless frames with no support is these chicken wire baskets. And I have refined them and tweaked them and tweaked them to refine them so they work about as well as you can get them to work. Now, I've done videos on them, so we don't have to rehash any of this. And about the best way to do it is put the frame in there, put a couple, 3 rubber bands on it, put it in, take it out, take the rubber bands out. You're just a big, slimy, honey-covered mess through the whole process.
And what you're putting them in is the centrifugal extractor.
Yes, my 2-frame extractor.
Okay.
So, anyone who hasn't seen those videos, you got to go back and take a look at them. I'll use this plastic frame as an example. The things I've come up with is this has to be narrower than the shoulders of the frame. It has to be shorter than the frame, for it to all work correctly. But regardless, it isn't great. And when I saw that picture, I thought to myself, hey, wait a minute. I should be able to do that using rabbit wire. And so a couple weeks ago, I went out one morning to do that. And herself said, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm making some new baskets for extracting comb. She says, can I get that on video? I said, yeah, sure, why not? So we're going to pause here for a splice, and you can watch me making them. Medium frame. Nice part about being an all-medium beekeeper, of course, is I use nothing but medium frames. Piece of wood cut to the length of this distance right here. All right, to the outside here, not counting the legs. This is all we need for the length of this. How wide does this need to be? This needs to be as wide as the bottom of this part of the frame. Okay? More or less. If you got something that's slightly smaller that works, I wouldn't go with something slightly larger, but somewhere right in that range.
Sorry about the traffic noise.
Yes, there's going to be a tremendous amount of traffic noise. Not really supposed to be doing things out here in front of the garage, but this is where my tools are. So, rabbit wire. 3/4 by 1 inch wire. I use it for all kinds of things. In this instance, we're going to be using it to make the solid-sided frame holders. I trimmed it so that side to side, it is slightly within the legs of the frame, okay? and slightly larger. This part goes down here. It's going to get nailed into the piece of wood. This is going to stick up a little bit. All right, and you'll see why all this has to happen that way. If I think of any other stuff along the way, we'll take care of it. So here we are getting started. All right. First thing I do is a couple of regular staples just to hold everything in place so I don't have to wrestle with it. Next thing's necessary is a few small fence staples. Don't use ones like this that have twisted into two different dimensions. You want to pay attention and use ones that are straight. I made that mistake on one of these on the first one. Not a mistake I want to make twice. Okay. So, given the size of this piece of wood underneath here, and the fact that the grain's running this way, if we were to drive through both sides with these, we'd end up with a lot of splits. So you're going to have to be sure to do a little bit of alternating. And the way I'm doing this is make two marks, drill a small pilot hole, so that we don't get splitting. And you see I'm just kind of using that to hold things together. And by the way, none of this is my fault. The videographer wants to get this on film. I would not have subjected you to all this fiddly stuff, but she insists.
Inquiring minds want to know. Is the frame underneath it helping you to steady the whole process?
Yes.
So it's not really necessary, it's just a help.
No, it's just supporting me.
Okay.
But it's also making sure I kind of keep things in an alignment.
Good to know. And the little anvil is just so you're not banging on the plastic table?
Yeah, it's either that or I have to turn around and go over to the vise with an anvil on it over on the workbench, and why bother? I've got my little anvil set up here for doing things just like this.
So how many of these holes are necessary?
5.
In each side?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, let's hope this one is more the correct size. Yeah, there we go. Good. With the other one, I had an overlap of wires sticking out the bottom all the way across and trimmed them off. You would need this to be a little higher. Uh, this is just enough higher so that it will have a pivot for the clips. So I'll be sure to put these clips, the pivot on them on the short side here, and we'll have the larger side to hook them out.
Got a stupid question for you.
Go ahead.
What happens if you use the ones that are not straight? They're a little bowed. What happens?
That happens.
Oh, okay. Understood.
Does that answer the question?
I think it did.
All right. And yes, I will get around to pulling that one out and indexing another one way or the other nearby.
Just haven't gotten around to it yet.
I've only been working on the project for an hour.
But it's not necessary to take those staples out after you get it all nailed up. You can just leave them in, right?
Yeah, I could. Not going to because these have no finish on them to keep them from rusting. So I take them out after I finish.
Okay.
So let's just start here in the middle. And if somebody wants to ask, couldn't you have taken and made a bend on the underside instead of having to use the wood? If I had better equipment than I do, yeah, but I mean, that would like need a sheet metal brake or something.
Works better on the anvil.
It does.
And again, the drill is mainly for keeping the wood from splitting on the grain.
It's all about keeping from the wood from splitting since we're following the grain.
Yeah.
All right. And yeah, it's probably possible to get by with 3 of these, but I don't lack for them, so I'm going with 5. And that's the body of it right there. Now for the fun part. Oh, yeah. All right, you do have to angle this way because I have no other way of doing this except this. So I would not be able, I would have a lot of trouble getting the frames in if I left it looking like this. It needs to be flared the way this is. And the best way to do that is to get that part in. You don't have to do it much since you're doing it on both sides. So now that it's flared out, it's easy enough to put ones in there. Frames, that is. Now you can slide a frame in that way so you can close it up. Now, as I was saying, now comes the fun part. So, regular stainless steel tie wire you can use at this point, and in fact, you could just snip a piece off, straighten it up, thread it through here, however the tightness is, bend and bend, and just, kind of leave it at that. That would do the trick. But like I will say in the intro here, I am imitating one from 1887, and they used these wire clips, and that stainless steel wire isn't heavy enough for that. So I'm using this 16 gauge black iron wire. For the moment, I will go out and get myself a piece of really thin stainless steel rod, and I will recreate these in stainless steel at some point. So. And again, you don't have to have a pair of rolling wire cutter or rolling wire pieces. I'm just going to start with that much right now. So I'm going to put this on the shorter side. Just get yourself a pair of small needle pointed pliers. Trust me, this is a lot easier than doing 2 loops around on that thing and then trying to thread them in.
And now you're just squeezing it tight?
Yeah, I'm just squeezing it tight so it can't come off.
But not too tight. Because it has to be able to roll back and forth, right?
Loose and play, loose play.
Yep.
So, right about here. This is where you want to have this available. Again, notice how these lay just to the inside of the shoulders. Yep, there we go. Right. Then down here. It's just, this is a new toy and I like using it. That is the pliers there.
The round pliers?
Yep. The wire bending pliers for making round things. Stick that in there. There we go.
So that serves the purpose of making it decorative and also making it not snag.
Yeah, well, it makes it easy to flip it with your finger.
Without getting your finger cut.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the reason for it. And I'm just going to do that 2 more times.
One on either end.
One on either end. And that's it. I've already checked these on the extractor. They fit in just fine. And there you go. I have a 2-frame extractor. I have no need for more than 2 of these. But for doing foundationless frames, it'll do a good job of holding everything in place. Hopefully better than the chicken wire ones I've already been using for several years, which work well enough. Okay, but having seen that thing for sale in the old catalogs back in the days when nobody had plastic frames, It's like that's what they came up with, and you know what? It's a perfectly good idea. And we're back. Okay, so this I have just done 4 boxes of comb, and this was so much faster and so much easier. It's terrific. Let me just I have just done them all, so I'm not going to actually demonstrate the extraction, but you saw the way they were built. I mentioned how you have to bend them out slightly so that these will fit in easily. Just like that.
Well, you have to cut them. You have to cut the wax off first.
Okay. Okay, dear, I will demonstrate. So normally I would have my cut and strain set up here so I can put the frame on the steel bar. You slice them down. You slice them down. Throw it in there. What's too low for the knife to get? I was trying something new this year. Several friends said they really enjoy this pricker. I don't. I think maybe it's because I have foundationless frames and my bees make their comb whatever size they want. On some of the frames, the thing worked pretty well. On other ones, it missed as many cells as it got. So I did give up on that in pretty short order and went back to just using a finely serrated knife and slicing the caps off underneath. That went a whole lot faster than running back and forth with the pricker and then finding out that half the cells didn't. I mean, this frame has been run through, and in some cases it just didn't get to it. Now these have been cleaned up by the bees. I gave them to them for a couple of days to clean off the worst of it before we demonstrated here. But at any rate, I want to get to this part of it. It is so much easier to put these in here. Now, I had pieces of stainless steel wire in case this didn't work and I just needed to put a wire on them. But as I said, I've just done 4 boxes and I didn't have to worry about it once. Just a bent piece of soft black iron wire. Worked just fine. Did not have a single failure throughout. I don't have to hassle with those little spacers that I put in here before. It just spins as nice as can be. But remember, again, you're doing foundationless comb. So I spin at low speed, bring it up, reverse it, put it down, bring it up. Nope, that one popped off. Reverse it, put it down, low speed on the other side. And after you've done low speed on this side, you can speed it up.
You don't actually have to do it.
You don't actually have to do it, I know. And then reverse it. Except for this one is all of a sudden a little fussy. Down it goes. Reverse it. And the first side gets spun at high speed. And between putting the chicken wire on and doing the reversals with the chicken wire, this was so much faster. It took me less time to do about, well, I did 4 boxes. And I would have only done about 2.5 boxes in that same amount of time if I was using the chicken wire.
About how many frames is that?
4 times 8, 32. Minus 4, I think. So about 28.
And what
frames.
time frame?
It took me about 2 hours and 20 minutes or so.
That's
to
great.
do it. Uh,
And you save all the comb to give back to the bees when they need
oh
comb
yeah.
next
Well,
year.
the reason for doing all this is comb is gold. Comb is an expensive product. Somebody was calculating that a frame of comb is worth about $8. To put an actual price tag on it, and some people would say that now they think it's worth a good deal more than that. But right now they're using a number like $8 for a piece of drawn comb. No honey in it or anything, just drawn comb in the frame. That frame is worth about $8.
But in terms of energy for the bees to make the comb, doesn't it take a lot more?
It takes about 7 times. You can get into all the arguments and fistfights you want about this, but it takes about 7 times as much energy. Well, what's the best way to put it? To make a pound of wax expends the same energy as making about 7 pounds of honey. So there is a huge benefit to being able to give them back comb. Now, at the same time, you want them to make comb in the spring. That's one of the reasons I like catching swarms. Is swarms are comb factories. So at best, I'll checkerboard, and sometimes I'll give them even less than straight up checkerboarding because I want them to draw new comb for me because I give away so much comb when I give away all these swarms. So yeah, I want to do that. That's really it. You saw the piece of the video where I was making them. It's pretty darn simple. There's only going to be a couple of tweaks. This one has a little bit too long a stem on it. I needed to shorten it up so that it'll tuck into here the way these do. Uh, little tweaks like that. I want to show you something else just for the fun of it. I did not uncap this frame because for all you folks out there who are not foundationless beekeepers, this might not be something you see a lot. So what we have here.
Hold it still so I can get a good shot, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brood comb from here to here, honeycomb along this band, and then drone comb over here, which is cleaned up and nice at the moment because I had them clean it all up. It's the same on the back, except that they did not read the manual and they did not put their comb through the middle of the wires here. But
and you put the wires on just to give it extra
to give it some extra strength.
Support.
A frame with this much attachment, you'd think to yourself, well, maybe you could spin that without. Yeah, I tried that on one frame that had like 3 times that much attachment at the bottom, but didn't have any wires in it, and it blew up on me. I tried cutting a corner, it blew up, so I spent 10 minutes fishing the chunks out of the bottom of the extractor before I could go on.
And that's why you use the cage now.
That's why I always use the cage, because with that, reading glasses, I looked up at her and got dizzy. That's it. Simple video. Just wanted to show you my new best friend out here, the rabbit wire cage instead of the chicken wire cage. I think it's going to work a whole lot better. So that's it. This has been Rich, South Florida Beekeeping with Rich. Be sure to like and subscribe.